I think I was 11 when I read Uncle Tom's Cabin, and I think I wept as a kid because the story. I mean, you understand why Harriet Beecher Stowe started the Civil War, right? That book was
Yep.
powerful.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 417. I'm talking to Mark Sims. Mark is a candidate for U.S. Senate here in Texas with the Libertarian Party. So we've actually got a contested Senate race here in Texas. And since I've had the other candidate on, I'm going to have the other candidate on, Mark Sims.
Hey, good morning, Chris. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to discussing things that we need to do in Texas and Washington.
How did you become a libertarian, Mark?
So I've always been small government, less intrusive, be allowed to live your life without government involvement. So I've looked at the Libertarian Party over the years, and I'm 100% aligned with the with the basic mentality of small government and freedom and liberty for the individual. But it seems like there was always too much noise kind of placed or emphasis placed on some of the peripheral issues that kind of kept me away. But as both of the other parties have drifted completely, off the radar, being able to support, I kind of come home and said, "Look, we have to give the Libertarian Party another look." So that was kind of a history of how I got here.
Okay, was there any particular person or any particular books or any other influences that inspired you? Or
Well, not particularly. I've always been, very much a politically aware person.
yes,
And I just never had the opportunity to really get involved. But I've reached a point in my life where I've got a window that I can put some of my passion to work and try to get into the discussion. I mean, that's really what it's about, is going into the marketplace of ideas and sharing your thoughts and getting here.
yeah, this is one thing a lot of people don't realize. Often people who run for office, it seems like they have a break in their lives where they're able to run for office because it really is a full time job. So have you run for office before, Mark?
No, I have not. I was very young, and engaged as a young student and even at college in political community affairs. And then, you grow up, you get married, you have kids, life happens, and you kind of lose the opportunity. Politics is kind of a whole of family affair, I think, and you have to have the support of a larger structure. And I'm in a place now where I have that. And so it's really, really good timing for me to reenter, because I mean, what we're seeing out there is, a continued drift away from the two major parties. I think Gallup had a poll that said overall 45% of the people are not really relating to either the Democrats or the Republicans. Amongst, Gen Z and millennials, it's even much higher. So maybe this is the time when we will have an opportunity to break through with the right reasonable message.
That's certainly true. I mean, they've always been talking about it, but they never seem to want to do anything about it. So nothing changes. Uh, you are running for the seat currently held by Joan Cornyn, who has been in the Senate since 2002.
Yes.
And it looks like we've got a few other people. We actually got Ken Paxton, the Attorney General. We've got
It was, huh?
one of our representatives one of the representatives from a district at Wesley Hunt is running, and looks like there's a few others. Yeah, there's also
Yeah, those are the 3 big names that are running on the GOP side.
Jasmine
Yeah, so
Crockett. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what inspired so many people to run against Cornyn.
Well, you've been around for a long time. He's been in the
Yeah,
Senate, like you said, for basically 24 years. People go to Washington and become fixtures.
yeah,
That's kind of the opposite of what I think was intended in this nation. I think the vision originally was citizen legislatures. You go, you serve, you make a contribution, you're passionate about some part of government, and then you go home and you live under the laws that you have written and created. So I believe it's probably time for Senator Corner to retire, and we have some new blood, some new ideas, new thoughts.
Well, if we really want to be strict about this, also the vision was that the Senate would be elected by the state legislatures, which gave
That's
the
the way it used to be,
state
but
legislatures way to control the control the feds. Now that check is completely lost.
yeah, it was the what 16th Amendment, something like that.
17th Amendment.
17th that took away the legislative uh, uh, selection of U.S. senators and gave it to the people. I mean, I'm all for expanding power to the voters. I think all sections of the government ought to be accountable to the voters ultimately. But yeah, it's definitely time to do some things. You notice, okay, the 17th Amendment. What we've done over 235 years is we have selectively, under duress, the Congress has passed an amendment inside both houses and put it to the states for ratification. But it's always been under duress. When they thought that somebody would potentially invoke Article 5 of the Constitution and go through the Convention of States methodology. But we've never really stepped back and looked holistically overall at what's really broken in Washington and how would we put together a set of reforms that together would fix the majority of those breakages. Maybe I'm idealistic, but I think at the end of the day, we've got the capability to do that. The question is, do we have the will?
What would you do to fix Washington? Because I think it's pretty much unfixable at this point, and I'm pretty much at the place where I think the country's unsalvageable. Unsalvageable.
I would never go down the route of it's unsalvageable because that means you should just give up and buy an empty missile silo somewhere and wait things out. And I don't think there are enough of those to go around. So I'm always going to be someone that says there's a solution. I mean, I'm not really a kind of a half full, half empty guy. I'm a guy that says, okay, here's where it's at. What could it be, and how do we close that gap? That's the way I've kind of approached issues throughout my life, and that's the way I would have done that. So, were you able to spend much time on my website? Because there's a very detailed plan for I think there's 18 some draft constitutional amendments that I think together would do what I call, buy a big old can of Bondo and fix the cracks that have developed in the body politic over the last 235 years.
Well, certainly, what do you think is your most important principle there, or your most important amendment proposal?
Well, there is actually an order in the way that they've been developed. The number one issue that I've got is the preservation of our electoral process, the integrity of elections. There was a lot spoken on that topic down at our recent meeting in Hayes County with Liberty United. Um, there are a lot of forces out there that are trying to produce chaos and causing the citizens to doubt the integrity and of our elections is a big component of that. So if we lose confidence in our electoral process, we've kind of lost it all at the end of the day. So my number one amendment is a very rigorous set of steps that says this is how we would secure and guarantee that at the end of the election we have a winner. Americans we all disagree. Texans, Americans, we disagree a lot on specifics of any given policy, but most of us are pretty fair-minded. At the end of the day, we want to win fairly. Maybe not everybody. There are some folks in politics I think will power at all costs. But I think we still have a majority of this country that believe in fair play, and so we ought to codify that. As a libertarian, I kind of shudder at the thought of having the federal government come in. And I don't want the federal government to run elections. I think they should stay within the state. But I think we do need a federal set of standards that all states can adhere to, so that we can be confident that the rules that we apply in Texas were also followed in Milwaukee or Pennsylvania or Illinois or California, so that we can have trust that the people going to Washington were elected fairly, and then we duke it out on the electoral side, topic by topic, issue by issue.
Well, Mark, we could start with one thing, and that's the fact that this is one of the few political systems that calls itself a democracy, but it's effectively rigged for two parties. What can you say about that?
Well, I don't know if it was rigged for 2 parties intentionally. That's what's happened. I mean, I think, Washington specifically was opposed to the development of parties, but it's come down to that, and I think, that's just the way it's worked. Although over time, the 2 parties have changed, right? The Whigs went away in the 1850s, and, the Republicans were formed. Democrats have kind of been around, I guess, since Andrew Jackson's time frame. So that's certainly not written in law. There can be multiple parties. I think we have a unique opportunity here in Texas in this particular election because the GOP, as you rightly pointed out earlier, you've got 2 very different wings. You got the establishment wing with Cornyn, you got the Paxton wing, with kind of the renegade liberty wing of the Republican Party. They don't like each other. Wes Hunt, was also a graduate of the military academy. He's a young guy and probably has a great future. I'm just not sure he has the experience that it takes right now. I mean, he's been up there and to my way of thinking, if anyone, and you mentioned those 3, but you also mentioned Jasmine Crockett on the Democrat side or Mr. Talarico, James
Yeah.
Talarico, here, from the Austin rep.
Well,
If
at
if
least in
you've been
Winter
in
City, there's a lot of people, yeah, that
if you've been in elected office for a 2 full year, 2 term, whether it's in Austin or Washington, and you're happy just to go back and join it, you're not completely disgusted with kind of the dysfunctional nature of it, you probably shouldn't have been ever sent there in the first place, let alone be given a promotion and sent back. So I will definitely be running against the people who have been in responsible positions and just accepted it. It's time to do some things differently.
well, as some people would say, Mark, it's the concept of failing upward.
Yes, well, also known as the Peter Principle, right? You go just as high until you get found out. It's kind of a fake it till you make it. This isn't rocket science. You've looked, you watch things that happen in Washington. You see the rage machine, how they kind of keep us kind of whipsawed from one issue to the next. Always, mad at somebody, mad at each other. It's unnecessary. There are ways we can fix things that would minimize that and allow us to return to more, common uh, dialogue because that's what we need in this country is less performance, less theatrics, and more substance.
Yes, certainly. Uh, I did notice, it's often, and they've actually shown that as candidates stay in Washington, as these reps stay in Washington longer, they get more likely to vote for a bigger government. So, term limits would be a help here. How long do you think the term limit should be?
So I definitely have a view on that. Ted Cruz when he goes, first of all, I actually worked phone banks for Ted Cruz in 2012. I believe he's a very intelligent man. But one of his things that I latched onto was his strong belief in term limits. Uh, Unfortunately, he doesn't follow his own prescription. So every time Congress, goes into a new session every January, Ted Cruz introduces an amendment for term limits. As a senator, he wants 2 senatorial terms or 12 years, and he
Yes.
only wants three House terms or 6 years, which is an interesting thing in and of itself. But his amendment says, "Oh, we don't start the clock until it's ratified." So I can have 2 more terms. So I guess maybe he wants 30 years after before it's all said and done. So I believe that we've got to have senior leadership in the Congress that can be a counterbalance to an executive branch. The executive branch has 2.5 million people at its disposal, including the armed forces. It's way too powerful. The power balance between what was intended for this country and way we've ended up is way out of kilter. So I would definitely not want the Speaker of the House to be starting his 5th year in the U.S. Congress when a president is starting his 7th year in the White House. That's a tremendous imbalance in understanding. And the other argument for allowing there to be some seniority in the House is that, if you turn over Congress so often that you never really get people who understand the machinery and the gearworks, what you're gonna end up with is the federal bureaucracy running the government as opposed to the people's representatives. So, I think 2 Senate terms is appropriate, and I think 6 2-year terms or also 12 years is appropriate for the House. One thing I don't know if you noticed, but I think there is, another amendment that says you should never be allowed to serve more than 12 consecutive years in federal government, whether that be legislative as a senator or a representative or an employee of the Department of the Treasury, right? We need people in government that have lived and are from the people and understand real life and the real world, not be ensconced in the cocoon
Yeah.
of Washington, DC for 30, 40 years.
Yeah, Mark, that is a very good point, and I didn't think much of it that way, but it does seem like these people gain more power as they're there longer, and I think maybe it's just because they become entrenched. And you think about, and when you think about, some of these, well, that's talked about it, the concept of the managerial revolution, and somebody thought about, the one person who was in Washington forever but was never elected, for example, was J. Edgar Hoover. And boy, did he change things, and certainly he gained a lot of power. But and then more recently, somebody compared J. Edgar Hoover to Anthony Fauci, and I said, "Yeah, you're right, because that guy's been there since 1968."
Making more than the
Yeah,
president, yes.
he's longer than Biden. You know, uh, and these
So
guys,
think about these guys, 50 years, whether it was, Teddy Kennedy or Bobby Bird or Mr. Strom, because it happens on both sides.
yeah,
They sit and squat in a Senate seat for 2 generations. Think of all the talent that's out there in their states that had good
yeah,
ideas and energy that could have contributed. But the system is broken a little bit, and so there's an amendment that speaks to campaign finance reform that begins to address that. I don't know if you spent much time on
yeah.
looking at it, but first of all, I'll just summarize it. I think we need typically has been a progressive or liberal position is that we should take the money out of politics. I worked for a couple 3 years with a convention of states. I don't know 10, 12 years ago, and I kinda had a falling out a little bit with Mark, over this issue, because, "Oh, it's Citizens United now. We've got money on our speech is money, blah, 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 blah. You have a lot of money, do you have more speech?" So, what I'm calling for is to split political money into 2 categories. One category is kind of issues, right? And as long as there's full transparency and traceability as to where the money's coming from that's backing whatever the message is that somebody's trying to promote, I'm good with it. But when it comes to candidates, i.e., people running for office, I don't believe in slavery. To include, rich people owning legislators, right? Shouldn't happen. So my amendment is very simple and it's very elegant. It says the only people authorized to contribute to a candidate would have the ability to vote for that office. So think about what that does. Instantly, it takes out PAC money. It takes out government money. It takes out uh, the speaker or the speaker and the majority leader being able to dole millions of bucks around to their buddies down in the states so that they
Yeah.
can come there and put them back in a leadership position. It takes out labor money. It says, hey, why not have representatives in Washington that are beholden only to the voters in their district or state? That's really a simple concept, and I think it's probably time we should look at it. The system rewards power, it gathers power, power attracts money, money is spent to accumulate more power. There's ways to fix this.
Well, so you object, for example, to me giving money to Thomas Massey in Kentucky, which I have done.
If you live in Kentucky in his district, I think you should be free
Okay.
to. But why should you go in and interfere in Kentucky? I mean, I get,
Yeah,
if there are issues that Thomas Massey, supports that you support, then by all means, support a PAC
yeah,
that's promoting those issues. But I don't think candidates should be beholden to anyone except their constituents.
that's true. But also I could give $50 to my friend who does live in his district, and then his friend could give him the money. I mean, there's all kinds of
No, I have a prohibition against bundling.
what?
And, there's a prohibition in my draft amendment against bundling, i.e. somebody collecting money. It says you must give from your own personal funds, so that's covered.
I don't know how you're going to prove or disprove that, but yes. So anyway,
Well, I think you make the penalties for not following the rules so severe that people decide they need to follow the rules and abide by what the law. I mean, the reason for putting these into the Constitution as amendments is so that for expediency's sake, the next Congress or the next president or the next, Supreme Court body can't just say, "Oh, let's just do away with them." If we do it right and we put it in the supreme law of the land, then we'll have something to hang our hat on
but
until people come along and say, "Okay, let's go through the constitutional process to make a
true.
revision."
But
And we've done that before.
this also creates a system where you actually have to hire, where you're a lot of people on your campaign team have to spend a lot of hours just keeping track of all the paperwork and filling out all these forms and keeping track of where every dollar goes and how every dollar's spent. And it actually becomes, I think, a barrier to a lot of people running for office.
Well, there's already, a pretty
Yeah.
strict reporting requirement for funds and expenditures into federal elections. So, I mean, we've got the technology today to be able to instantly document and make transparent where the money's coming from. And then there's an obligation to report to the FEC as to how you spend it. Um, One of the things that's at the end uh, is that if there are funds left over from a campaign, they have to be donated to the federal treasury to either go into a rainy day fund or pay down the national debt.
Yeah.
Why should incumbents for all the whole time they're in office, collect lobbyist monies and start with, tens of millions of dollars. I mean, Governor Abbott here in Austin is probably starting this year with $100 million in the bank, and so it makes a challenge for a regular
Yeah.
citizen with better ideas to go up against that very difficult. So I don't think we should allow perpetual campaign funds. If you got money left over, it goes to the treasury.
Well, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Yeah, yeah. In fact, you see some people who I think they run just so they can pay off past debts.
Yes, or finance a lifestyle. That happens too out there, I think. So my plan is to be very transparent with what I get and how I spend it. I think that's what you owe. If you're gonna seek a leadership position and the trust of the public, you need to be prepared to be fully transparent.
Yeah, we also have situations where a lot of times, when I was knocking out doors with Ron Paul, I actually, you know, printed a lot of my own flyers for him. I literally just made the flyers myself and printed them. So that was a small expense, the toner and the printer and the paper, but otherwise, was something I did out of my own pocket. I never, so yeah. So, I mean, you have a lot of people who are doing a lot of things. I worry about the First Amendment implications of, censoring anybody from, say, buying ads. It's just, uh, so who are some people, is there anybody in government right now that you admire or respect or not?
Oh, sure. I think there are a lot of really good patriots in the US Congress, imagine that. Sometimes we wonder, but I think most of them actually go there pretty idealistic, with respect to their ability to impact the process and make things better. But the system today kind of grinds them down. You have to kind of go along and get along, and suddenly you're compromised. So, to short answer, sure, there are people. I love John Kennedy, next door in Louisiana. I think he's a patriot, and I think he will do the right thing, and he does the right thing. I follow him quite closely, uh, and I actually believe we haven't really gotten there yet, but I have a strategy. I know it's difficult to imagine breaking through. It's a very long shot, but it would be an earthquake, right? If Texas were to say, "Hey, let's send a libertarian, truly independent senator to Washington." There is an effort underway by a group, and I won't name them today, to identify and elect a set of representatives in the House that owe allegiance to neither party, and to attempt to get a sufficient number because the House is so evenly divided right now to keep the House from reorganizing or from organizing, electing a speaker, et cetera. And I'm not exactly sure what their ask is going to be, but I know what my ask is going to be. And by the way, I have a meeting with these folks early next week, and we're going to kind of jointly plot a strategy, hopefully. My ask is going to be is that the 18 drafted amendments in some better legal form, I'm not a lawyer, um, and individually and collectively as the bill of reform be put on the floor of the Senate to be voted on. Will they pass? Who knows? But we'll get on record who's for cleaning up Washington and who is not. That's what if I could go and find and I have a short list of people that I think would be approachable, and there will be new members of the Senate in January of 2027. It probably would take 5 to 7 max to be able to throw a wrench into the gearworks, right? And say, "Look, we're not gonna let either party organize until we get an ironclad agreement to put some reforms before the people."
Yes. By the way, I do want to clarify. The John Kennedy you're talking about is John Neely Kennedy. He is the senator from Louisiana. I got to admit that guy does say some things that are some really great sound bites. I mean,
If I had his if
I
his
don't know what else is, but for example, this tweet: "There are a lot of smart people in Washington, but that doesn't mean they have any common sense. Americans are sick of high IQ, stupid people trying to run their lives." Yeah,
yeah, yeah, exactly. So what if I had his skills in oratory, I would be really blessed. The guy knows how to throw a soundbite for sure. But he's not the only one. I think
yeah,
there are others. I mean, Senator Loomis, Cynthia Loomis is a good solid uh, senator. Josh Hawley out of Missouri. There are quite a few people, and to believe it or not, I thought I would never say this, but I think there's a Democrat or 2 that might be really reform minded, and I would
yeah.
love to work with.
Well, one thing about I don't know what you think about Loomis, but she's from Wyoming, but I know Loomis is often a speaker at various Bitcoin conferences. Uh,
I'm sorry, I did not get that point.
she speaks at a lot of Bitcoin events.
Yes, I think she is, very pro crypto. Yes.
Yeah, so,
Alright, you're trying to move this conversation in some direction, I think.
no, I'm not
Yeah,
trying to move the conversation.
it's no, it's all good.
Pointing out that she's been friendly to Bitcoiners. I don't really know. Is there anybody anybody in the Libertarian Party that you think has done a really great job?
Well, we don't have any libertarians in Congress, right? I mean, we had Ron Paul, we have Rand, right? I think Rand is at heart is obviously a libertarian. He and his dad both have seen fit to run under the GOP banner because that's kind of the infrastructure that it takes. But I think yeah, Rand Paul is a is a libertarian and somebody that I would love to work with.
Yeah. Are there any people that you thought ran really great campaigns, even if they didn't win?
Oh, I'd have to think about that. Yeah, I'm focused mostly on, on Texas and, yeah, at the top of the head, I can't come up with one, that I would, I would think would have been a potentially good, compatriot or someone to collaborate with on my passion of cleaning up Washington.
What do you think about the man in the White House right now?
Oh, that's kind of a new I have to take a nuanced view on that. How do I say that? So I probably detest just about everything about him day in and day out, in the way he approaches government. I know that won't sit well with a lot of folks in Texas, perhaps. But on the other hand, I actually, at the end of the day, have to say, the outcome of his policies aren't always all that bad. As a man, I don't think I should be ruled by my emotions, right? I need to take a more cognitive approach to the results. I mean, look what's happening in the chaos right now in Minneapolis. Um, I I just am disgusted by the approach taken. On the other hand, should we not be trying to remove undocumented people who are criminals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Probably so, right? It's probably good for the people of Minneapolis, as a matter of fact. Although we the resistance, if you will, might be upset because, what Trump's doing is he's removing their voter base, and that doesn't sit well, right, with politicians. I mean, if you think about the federal government has been turned into a massive money laundering machine. We work hard, we pay taxes at a very high rate, and then the government takes that money and funds it to NGOs that don't like this country, that are
Yep.
trying to bring it down, who give it back to politicians who do more and more of the same. I mean, Stacey Abrams, wow, the election denier from Georgia, Biden threw her a cool $2 billion right as he was leaving the door, right, walking out
Yes.
the door. I mean, that's got to stop at some point.
Well, Mark, I mean, let's face it, if you don't want people to come here, I mean, don't offer them free stuff would be the first thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not only first of all, my thesis of the campaign is that we're probably not going to get great policy outcomes with the present crew operating under the current rules. So what we need to do is modify the rules, get a different crew, and then go back and attack the issues. Now, if you're going to have a campaign, you're obliged to have a position on the issues. And if you go and look at the issues on my website, I think it's simsfortexas.org, everybody, you will see that I think, what is a quite reasonable, compassionate approach to the immigration issue, for sure. And one of the elements is that you cannot come into the country and automatically start receiving a check, right? That's a magnet, and it's just a formula for an unworkable system. I mean, immigration policy. You've had decades of bad policy, decades of bad enforcement, and now we're at a place where we actually should try to do something about it, and I have a plan for that.
What is your plan?
So, first of all, we should eliminate the theatrics and the performative art around removing, undocumented who shouldn't be here. We should go about it quietly, professionally, and do the job, because that's the law. Second of all, and we should also eliminate all the financial the attractions for people just to flood across the border or come in, and start cashing a check. I mean, I think I have a statement somewhere that says, when 50% plus one all can be categorized as takers, the country falls apart, right? Much to your point earlier, you think we're already gone. That's when we really fall apart. Is when 50% plus one are on the taking side as opposed to the contributing side. So we shouldn't do that. So what my proposal is pretty straightforward is
Yeah.
that we should continue the process of getting folks, criminals, um, people who have committed crimes here, who came here. Certainly, we've got people brought in through supposed emergency, conditions that really don't buy into the American process and the American ideal that we kind of promote in Western civilization. We have to take a close look at who's
Yeah.
flooded this country. But once we've done that, it's pretty clear also. I was in a position once where, um, you have to be really careful about having laws that the majority don't respect, right? That's a formula for disaster. So we're probably not going to take out, nor maybe should we, 15 million people here who came for the American dream for the right reasons, but we have a right as Americans to know who is here and the fact and to be aware that they're contributing and being good citizens, right? So my plan would say let's reconstitute something that's similar to the World War II draft boards, local, county, precinct, and let's have a 90, 120-day period where all undocumented can report as a family where they came from, when they got here, what they're doing, and they can be assessed. And if they are contributing to society, they're employed, they're self-sufficient, they get a status that maybe we don't have that status today, that says, "Hey, okay, we recognize you're here. You're making a contribution to this country. You can work. You get permission to work. We're going to review your status. You need to keep your nose clean as an individual, as a family. We're going to review that periodically. And if you turn out to not be a productive member of society, you're going to lose the status and you're going to be subject to deportation." So I think we have to work our way through and figure out the reality of where we're at today.
Yeah, I have I do not believe that, visa revocation entitles you to due process. Now, if we're going to actually charge you with a crime, then yes, you're entitled to due process. Unfortunately, we also have this system though that, if we deport immigrants, they can still go wherever they want as long as it's not the US. So we haven't taken their freedom away. We've just taken one country away from them. But this
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
business, but I'm totally opposed to this whole business of us incarcerating immigrants and then just saying, well, they don't have due process. And I'm also opposed to sending them to El Salvador and incarcerating them. I mean, once they're out of the country, let them go. That's what I think.
Yeah, there's so much that's gone wrong, and it's not gonna be easy to untangle it all, and we shouldn't have any illusions or delusions about that. But there is a way to recognize where we're at and to figure out a moderate, compassionate way forward that protects this country because I hear people talk about, "Oh, I just want Ellis Island immigration again." Okay, so that's like, late 1880s, 90s, turn of the century, not early 1900s. The world isn't the world's changed in the last 120 or 30 years.
We
We
have
just can't
airplanes
have
and cars.
what's that?
We have airplanes and cars.
We have airplanes and cars, and some people who would like to drive airplanes into buildings and other things, right? The world's a dangerous place, and it's the responsibility of anyone who puts themselves up in a position of public leadership to be really cognizant of all the nuances that need to be taken into account before we just kind of you know briefly say, "Oh, let's do this, let's do X, let's do Y." The world's a more sophisticated, complex place, and we need to understand that there are lots of people who would love to come into this country for wrong reasons, right? And we don't know how many came in under the last administration. What we have discovered, however, is that it didn't take any new laws to stop the immigration flow, right? It just took enforcement. I don't think many people are coming across the border anymore. You mentioned earlier about the entitlements, and you come in and you get a government benefit. So there was something floating around on the web. I don't know. Couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, that said if you took kind of the household income of the average family from Mexico, our neighbor to the south, and you set that as the cutoff level, and you said, okay, well, anybody below that ought to get to come and have a free opportunity for the American dream, um, because they're in poverty throughout the world, and yeah, we want all these people to have good lives. No issue there. The problem is that if we took 1,000,000 a year out of that pool, there's something like 80,000,000 added to that pool every year. The math doesn't work. We can't be compassionate enough to just give everybody a ticket into America. Besides, the people that have the motivation to come to the United States are exactly the people we really need to stay in those countries and build those societies, right? We don't want to hollow out the rest of the world. We want to give those people a chance to have constructive societies with their own culture and their ability. Well, nobody ever decided that America should be the be all end all for everybody, right? So I think we need to be really a little bit more more thoughtful about our immigration policy and what we do. But I agree with you. What we're doing today is disgusting in many ways. No problem.
I think one of the maybe perhaps one of the worst freebies that doesn't get talked much about is if you're familiar with EMTALA, which is Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, which was passed in the during the presidency of that great conservative Ronald Reagan, which says that if hospitals take Medicare, they cannot turn patients away. Uh, this means that all illegal immigrants and whatever, the emergency room becomes their de facto doctor because they can't be turned away. So yeah, there's so many ways that we're incentivizing people to come here, and that's just enough.
Yeah, I mean, what you're really pointing out is that for as a society, we've just over these 235 years, we've just kind of been on this trajectory of the federal government just taking on more and more accountability and responsibility. And I'm not sure that's been good for us. Why can't we do things at the state level, at the local level? Why every time a dollar goes to Washington, it gets washed through
Yes,
layers of bureaucracy and comes back with a few cents, right? Let's keep resources local. Let's empower local people to have situations and processes that meet their needs. But sure, if someone is ill and needs emergency care, yeah, I want to give them the best life and the best chance possible. But I don't think that necessarily means a federal government mandate to do it. Let's have charities and churches and local
but
organizations step in. I guarantee you they'll use their resources a lot more efficiently than bureaucrats in Washington do.
well, and that does raise the question: what would you do to fix healthcare?
I would I mean, to change the Unaffordable Care Act? Uh,
Yeah.
the premiums have gotten so high that without a subsidy, you can't afford it, but even if you get it, you can't use it because your deductibles are so high. So the only people getting wealthy off of our healthcare system are the corporations and the bureaucrats, right? So let's allow insurance risk pools to be formed locally, certainly insurance across state lines. What we've done is we've socialized the cost and the risk, but we've privatized the benefit. Here in Texas, I don't know if you know this, but up in Hamilton County, when they were kind of faced with the corporatism of, if you will, of their health system, the people stepped in and bought the assets. They bought the hospital and the clinics. They have a local board, and so they're watching and providing services to not only Hamilton County but the surrounding counties because it works. That's the kind of innovation that we need, not something mandated out of the Beltway.
Yeah. What are well, for example, the other federal issues? What about the other entitlements? Of course, Social Security.
So have you actually looked at my website on this topic? Because I do address it there. So first of all, let's take Social Security. The Consolidated Trust Fund is scheduled to go bankrupt or become insolvent in 2035, right? That's a mere 9 years from now. There's no actual money there, just a big box. Al Gore didn't get his lockbox after all, right? Uh, so there's a bunch of IOUs in it, but from an accounting standpoint, it's got funds to give full benefits through 2035. And then after 2035, we're supposed to go on a pay-as-you-go basis, i.e., whatever we get that year, we'll allocate it amongst the recipients, proportionally or I guess, relative to their, quote, "earned benefit." I believe that a commitment made should be a commitment kept. So the Social Security system, the money was taken by through coercion, right? From your check and from your employer's profits. So I think we owe senior citizens those benefits, but we shouldn't stop there. Somewhere around 30 plus years ago, Chile had the same problem, an insolvent Social Security system, right? And they went completely private. They started taking the withholdings from both the employee and the employer and putting them into market-based funds. And not only does the citizen own that account, but they got much, much, much higher returns and benefits. Now, some people get left out if you never qualify or you're an individual, et cetera. So they've kind of gone back to a hybrid approach where some of the benefit comes out of a market-based system and some of it comes out of an entitlement side. What I did and what I'm offering on my website to, first of all, us old gray-haired folks who wanna see exactly how bad we've been robbed, but also to millennials and to Gen Z, an opportunity to download a spreadsheet, plug in your own earnings history, plug in the S&P return throughout the whole time. I ran mine, and you know what? Um, I would be getting, if at age 67 had I retired, had I just simply taken all that out, and it had been fully private, and put it in US Treasury bills at 4% or so interest, I'd be getting 4 times the annual benefit that I'm getting out of the Social Security system. If I had done, half in a hybrid system, if I had done half, through the entitlement and half in the market, I would still be getting, like, 2 times the benefit. And if I had done just 2/3 and 1/3, i.e., the 1/3 being market-based, retirement, I'd be like 1.5 times the benefit. So, the federal government didn't do us any favors with managing our retirement funds. So, I think we need to work our way out of the problem is I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah, what do you have to say about guns?
About guns?
Yes.
I have a few. That's what I that's what I have to
Well,
say.
also the
Uh
Second Amendment to the Constitution and the right to bear arms.
I'm a total supporter of an individual's right to defend themselves against, whatever happens in their daily life in terms of people who intend ill. But, I happen to think that the framers, having experienced what they did, wanted, a well-regulated militia as a counterbalance to a federal, um, force. So, totally pro Second Amendment, right to bear arms. I mean, gun-free zones just simply are an announcement that, "Hey, there's a lot of victims here, come on." So, I think that should make it pretty clear is where I stand on Second Amendment.
Yes. What do the words well-regulated militia mean to you?
Well, I think it meant that the states had the right to keep some force, to take care of state matters, right? But I actually agree with the most recent Supreme Court is that it is indeed extended to the individual, and so I'm pro the ability to maintain, weapons or guns to defend yourself and your property.
Yes. Certainly the
Do
whole.
you really think that someone with bad intent, a criminal, is going to abide by a law that says they can't have a gun?
No, and this is the problem I have where and this is, I think, that what is just the logical insane the insane thinking behind this. Murder is already illegal. Now murders still happen. So how is making something else illegal going to stop those murders? Because, well, so you just where do you end on making things illegal to s
It's
to
just illegal to
yeah,
the nth power, right? There's so many laws that are redundant, et cetera.
yeah.
Yeah, you exactly right.
So yeah, it's this whole concept of this is a victimless crime, but we'll make it illegal because it'll prevent victim crime. It's obscene to me. It's and we see that crazy logic applied to a lot of things. Uh, that's yeah, the whole thing. Who are some people in American history that you really admire?
Obviously, I am a fan of the founders, just, uh, Madison and Jefferson, the Washington, probably less so on the Adams side, father and son, but it's an interesting point. I don't believe uh, in multi-generational hand the presidency and offices down. I think we fought a revolution to stop that. And we had a recent exercise of that, right? Which got us into trouble, by the way, between some Republicans with, I think there was somebody with a bush or maybe a small shrub, something like that. Um, anyway, so Lincoln, Lincoln held this country together in a really, really tough period, right? Slavery is abhorrent. To think that you should gain from owning another human being is just this gives everything in my body to accept that. I mean, as a kid, I think I was 11 when I read Uncle Tom's Cabin, and I think I wept as a kid because the story. I mean, you understand why Harriet Beecher Stowe, started the Civil War, right? That book was powerful, and yeah, it is just wrong. It's just totally wrong. So Lincoln did what he had to do to hold this nation together and end an evil that should have been ended. So I'm
You know,
a big fan.
I think you're the first person I've ever talked to who has actually read Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is kind of surprising because that's such a famous American book. But that also shows the power of the narrative.
Yeah.
And that time it was novels, and of course now it's
Yeah.
movies and TV shows. But yes,
Uh, there you go, right there.
you know,
No, it's
yeah,
there's a lot of it's one of the things that shaped me as a kid that
yeah,
said, "Hey, there are forces out there." I mean, I I'm an engineer. I think that's some of the stuff on the website kind of points that out. Nature abhors the vacuum. That's a truth. That's a
yes.
natural law. And when good people step away from the fight, evil finds fertile ground. So I believe that people need to be engaged in the body politic and civic affairs that have good intentions, because there's going to be plenty of people that don't have good intentions.
And there are so many people out there who I just think, I don't worry about it and it's not going to impact me. Well, well, would you say that, if you'd been a, would you say, well, there were Polish Jews in June of 1939 who were thinking that too. And then 3 months later, these crazy Germans are across the border. I mean, I don't think you can really ever block politics out because eventually politics might find you.
This is true. Yep. Um, yeah, it's unfortunate that people of character didn't step in and prevent the disasters that happened in Europe in the 40s.
And sometimes they're just too busy doing other things.
Yep.
I do think that maybe when people, get into their work and start raising kids, they don't necessarily have time to think about politics.
Yeah, that's kind of my life. I had a so at 17, I was sitting on as a director of the local chamber of commerce. I was by well, the circumstance that president of the student body for 2 years in a row, which was unheard of. I don't know if it's ever been done since. When I went to West Point, I was there in the second half of the '70s, which is a time of major scandal,
Oh,
cheating.
wow.
I don't know if you remember it. My classmates selected me to be chairman of the cadet honor committee in a really troubled time to try to salvage that system and maintain ethical standards. So I was engaged in a lot of stuff young, and then life happened, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and now it's time to hopefully use the experience, scars. I've got lots of them uh, from life, and maybe a little bit of wisdom, and say, look, let's go back and see if we can get in the
Yeah.
conversation and make a contribution. That's really what my candidacy is all about.
I got to ask you, let's imagine, a high school sophomore is out there and wants to go to West Point. How'd you get into West Point?
Oh, so I have an older
I mean, it's
brother
not,
that,
it's not easy. I'm sure you have to be appointed. It's an
well,
amazing
yes.
honor.
W I have an older brother that, volunteered to go to Vietnam for 2 terms back to back. He was a chopper pilot, which was one of the more risky jobs, in Vietnam,
I
and,
can
I think
imagine.
in between his 2 tours, he got to come back, and he had a few weeks with me. I was, a young kid, and he said, "I think what you should do is you should try for the academy. he said, "You've got the academic skills, and leadership credentials that should give you a chance." And so I thought, I hadn't really thought of that. I was working, I think I was financially independent from the time I was age 12 in terms of my own money and my own everything. I just kind of did my own thing. I think my older siblings kind of wore my parents out. There was a big gap to me, and then
And
I was free.
so you're
So
like
I
running little businesses or cutting grass or what? Wow.
so my so oh yeah, I used to buy a lawnmower in the spring and wear it out by August or September, right? My mom would load me up in the back of the old red pickup truck, and she would sew or do something while she would get me to any job I could get. At 13, my Saturday job was, to go to a dry cleaner and break down all of that big equipment and drain all the naphtha out and clean those big tanks, and then reseal them up and test them and then clean the shop. So it was kind of a combination. I mean, OSHA would have died if they'd have known that a 13-year-old was doing that on a Saturday. But yeah, I went to work. That's kind of my
I,
family ethic.
you know,
So
I,
West Point.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's just play that thread out. So I did. I went to my counselors, and I had great high school counselors. I mean, I'm a product of the public school systems in West Texas, and they said, "Look, let's get on it." So we started applications to all four. Um, West Point, Annapolis, Colorado Springs, and New London, the Coast Guard. And then it turns out I had a really good friend that wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, blind as a bat. We knew they wouldn't let him in, but I couldn't compete against him, so I didn't complete the Air Force Academy. Had another brother who was in the Navy. He was on the World War II destroyer. He said, "You don't want to be in the Navy." So I didn't complete the Navy. I completed the West Point and the New London Coast Guard and ended up getting appointments to both. I think Omar Burleson, the old, I don't know if it was the 17th or 27th district back then. I got his nomination. He did what politicians do. That is not make a decision. He nominated everybody in his district that was qualified and then let the academy make a selection out of the group. As a congressman, you have and a senator, you have the right to absolutely name them, or
Yeah.
you can do what he did. He punted and put the burden back on the academy. He's a good politician, but I mean, Mr. Burleson, I appreciate what he did. I think he's long gone, bless his heart.
How many applicants was that though?
So my class entered, I mean, from my district.
Because this is an entire congressional district. I mean, I know only a handful of people who applied to any of the service academies. I mean, there probably weren't more than maybe 20 in the whole congressional district, I figure, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think there were like 7 folks or so, that number competing for West Point out of my congressional district, and I was fortunate to be able to have been chosen. The class itself brought in 1,500, on what we called our day, reporting day. And so y cadets come from the congressional districts. Every congressman gets 1 to each academy. Every senator gets 2 to each academy. The president and the vice president get like 50 each year to each academy, and then guess who gets the rest?
Ooh,
The director of athletics, of course, right? He gets to fill all of his college varsity teams. And
yeah.
so it's an interesting mix. So I came in, and I guess I went in June of 70 or July of 75. 1,500 of us, and about 900 plus, just over 900 graduated in June of 79, 4 years later. So fairly high attrition rate. Great experience, though.
I
Sorry, I
could
cut you off.
yeah. So obviously you went through all that and then you did your service obligation.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I was a little bit worried coming out of Sweetwater, Texas, high school. Can you compete at this level? And it turns out that, hey, I had a great public education. I wasn't the
Yeah.
smartest guy in my class, but I worked harder
When were
than
you there?
everybody else.
And when were you there?
So I went in between 75 and 79. So my term as a cadet would have
Yes.
corresponded to Jimmy Carter's time in the White
Yes.
House. which saw a lot of turmoil and tumult. We not only had the cheating scandal, of which later on I kind of inherited that. Um, Women were introduced into the academy during my time. So the class of '79, our official motto is top of the line. We had an unofficial motto or two. But we were the last all male class. So that means that we saw the integration of the women into the academies
You know,
for the next 3 years. Not our plebe year, but the 3 years as upperclassmen. We saw that transition occurring.
Mark, also, since you're, a Texas boy, you got to experience the winter of 77. Oh,
Not only the winter of
yeah.
'77, this is true. I think I had been on a plane one time before my parents put me on a plane in airport in Abilene, Texas, and sent me to LaGuardia. So I was not necessarily the world traveler, but yes, I got introduced to 4 seasons. The Hudson freezes over, and it is a brutal winter in upstate New York. Although Manhattan's, what, 50 miles downriver, it's a completely different world. Not only did I get the winter of '77, but I think it was the summer before we were we do training at a place called Camp Buckner between your plebe and yearling year, freshman, sophomore,
Yeah.
or you civilian types. I got Hurricane Bell. I was on the infantry week during Hurricane Bell. We were literally clinging to the side of mountains, just drenched wet for days because a hurricane hit during my company's rotation into the infantry training
But
process.
it prepares you. I can imagine. Yeah,
Yeah, you learn what you can take and what you can't take, right?
Mark, this is another thing too. And I know a lot of parents out there will kill me for saying this, but I often say to kids, I said, when you leave home, really leave. And you really did leave. You went from
Oh,
Texas
yes.
to New York State. I mean, I've also heard that it is a really pretty area up there. I've heard it's a beautiful campus.
If you've not been, you should put it on your bucket list.
Yeah.
It's like stepping into a different world. The academy itself is very Gothic, gray stone granite towers and parapets and buildings. Even the modern newly built stuff has been built to blend in. It is a phenomenal place to visit.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge to live there for 4 years, but all in all, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I have friends and relationships because of what you experienced together that have lasted a lifetime. So, it was all good.
There really is a bond that forms when guys are in the service together. It's really wild.
Yeah, there's a place out on the academy called Trophy Point, and they have the old cannons, but they also have the 16, 18-inch chain
Yeah.
links that were floated across on logs across the Hudson to keep, to keep the British from sailing up to Albany, right? And dividing New England off from the rest, of us. There's just so much history. Up above Mackey Stadium, which sits on kind of the mountainside, there's
Yeah.
there's a fort. It's called Fort Putnam today, but it was Fort Arnold then. Benedict Arnold was in command of that fort.
Right.
So yeah, it's just like walking back into history. The Cadet Chapel is a phenomenal old cathedral, and now we've got a Jewish chapel and a Catholic chapel. It's it's a place you should make an effort to get to if you can at all
You
possible.
know, it's probably not the same as the football game since they play at a neutral site, but maybe it'd be cool there to go there for the basketball game when they play Navy. Yeah.
So the academy obviously has its own football stadium, which is undergoing renovation,
Yeah.
quite extensive, and it's a gorgeous facility because it sets up and overlooks the whole
Yeah.
Hudson Valley. But yeah, typically the Army Navy game itself is on neutral territory. It used to
Yeah.
always be in Philadelphia, and because we always stayed at the old Ben Franklin Hotel. That was the West Point's
Yeah.
hotel, and, it's probably in bad shape by the time we left. Uh, but now they move it around. Sometimes it's they moved it to the Meadowlands for a few
Yeah,
years.
East
They
Rutherford.
moved it.
Well, those are places that are in between, that makes sense. I mean, East
Yeah,
Rutherford, I think they played it at Baltimore, which
but
is
that
almost
but that but that's a great experience. I was really fortunate. My classmate who wanted to go to the Air Force Academy, but didn't and couldn't because he was blind, actually picked up the nomination. Congressman Burleson rotated his packet over to the Navy, and he did get accepted as a naval midshipman. Went on to become a nuclear submariner. He and I were both there, so we were at the same high school. He
Yeah.
was at Navy, I was at Army. We were back and forth a lot. We went on, holidays together. So I wasn't totally isolated. I had a friend at the Naval Academy, put it that way.
Yeah, well, was it Eisenhower said, the Army and Navy are the best of friends, 364 days a year.
Yes.
Mark, I also got to ask you, are you aware of that of the quote by Patton?
Well, which one?
He said something to the effect of, "Give me some guys from West Point and I'll win a battle," but he said, "Give me a bunch of guys from Texas A&M and I'll win a war."
Well, yeah, yeah,
He
I'm
was in
aware of that.
Texas. Yeah.
And hey, I love the folks down at A&M. I have a daughter who has an Aggie degree, so I love A&M. No problem there.
Gotta ask what I can imagine. What was it like at the Army Navy game? I can imagine
It's a great environment. I mean, I think when I was there, we were going through a drought, and we didn't
yeah,
win, I don't think, until maybe my senior year. So our comeback was Army won. We won the march on, right?
yeah,
If you look at both the Naval Brigade of Midshipmen and the Corps of Cadets all march on to the field prior, right? And, of course, the Navy guys don't march nearly as well as we do, so we always won the march on, whether we won the game or not. But then Army's, luck's changed, right? It's been much more balanced the last few years.
actually, Army won in 71, 72, and 77, but Navy won all and there was a tie in 81, but Navy won a bunch of other years. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I would have been there for the game in '76, 7, 8. Yeah, 6, yeah,
yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8, I guess would be
What
the
they do? They'll, like, get buses for all the guys to go down to the game, or how to
Oh, yeah, yeah, massive convoy 'cause,
yeah,
that was a mandatory formation. You had to be there on pain of death, right? And in fact, my midshipman buddy and I took off one, and we went to, Cleveland because his a sponsor, retired naval captain, colonel equivalent, wanted
yeah.
invited him for Thanksgiving. So we drove out, we got a car and drove out, and then we got caught in a blizzard. So this would have been probably '77. Um, and we couldn't make it back. We had to ditch the car in Pittsburgh, and we got to formation with like 5 minutes to spare. Otherwise, you were in deep trouble. Uh, you don't miss it. So it's a full mandatory appearance by all cadets and midshipmen.
Yeah, yeah, what were you doing over in Pittsburgh?
Well, we were driving from Cleveland back to trying to get to Philadelphia.
Okay.
We got caught in a blizzard, and we had to ditch the car in Pittsburgh, and we got a flight that got us in just under the wire.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can imagine what the environment is at that game, yeah, so yeah, it seems like there's a lot they've got a lot of great traditions there. Most of the traditions have lasted for so long, I can imagine. Did you get to meet any, famous, people there, dignitaries while you were at Army, or
Oh, sure. So I
generals?
don't know if you
Yeah,
so the I guess the cheating scandal happened the class of '77, so it was probably in my plebe year. Um, and they brought in a new superintendent, who's was famous in his own right. So the superintendent for the last couple of years, was a guy named Andy Goodpaster, Andrew Jackson Goodpaster, class of 1939. I called him the last great American aristocrat. He was actually ICE, military attaché, in the early '50s, went on to become the Supreme Allied Commander, became the SOUP, and as the chairman of the honor committee, I had lots of opportunity to interact with him. This is a great individual. Yeah, so folks like that, I got to work with Wes Clark, who eventually became, Supreme NATO commander, um, was, was a major, I think, working in the Carter White House. I had dinner with him. I had a sponsor who kinda had a little Sunday evening gathering, and so I met, Wes Clark, Cliff Robertson, the actor from
Oh, wow.
'70s and '80s. We engaged him to do some work with the honor committee to kind of video or film, kinda talking about ethics and et cetera. So I got to spend some time with him, met a couple of Miss Americas while I was there. So it's all good. So lots of fun stuff. Um, yeah, maybe Barry Goldwater. He was at the end. They created a new department, and normally the department is headed by a full colonel, right? A senior colonel. It was called Behavioral Sciences and Leadership, BSNL. Uh, Cadets called it bullshit and lies. But anyway, they did a search for a department head, right? And they found the best qualified guy. He's a great friend of mine, actually. Was a major at the time, and he needed to be promoted to colonel, i.e. skip lieutenant colonel. So I think Goldwater's up, and they prevailed on him to go back to Congress and get a law passed, to promote him directly into an '06 grade, and skip the lieutenant colonel, so he could become the department head. So yeah, it was interesting. We got to interact and see lots of different people.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, I just thought of also, do they play the lacrosse games also at Michi Stadium?
They do play the
That's
lacrosse.
what go there for the Army Navy lacrosse game, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that would probably be on side. Yeah, that would be an awesome event to attend. I mean, I've been down in Annapolis a lot. It's a great facility as well. Colorado
Yes.
Springs is a great facility.
Well
You can't do wrong by going and pursuing or visiting any of those, those bases or facilities.
you know, it probably still really still is the greatest college rivalry. I mean, it's
It will always be, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of America's Day, right? I mean,
yeah,
when I was a cadet, it was on Saturday following Thanksgiving. So you
yeah,
kinda got Thanksgiving in the mess hall, and then you all got bussed down, and you had a weekend in Philadelphia, and hopefully you won. But somewhere along the way, we don't quite warrant that weekend anymore because that's kind of rivalry week. So now we're kinda like the 2nd Saturday in
yeah,
December. We typically coincide with the Heisman. Um, but
yeah,
it works out. It's still a day when guys from the services all over the world get together and give each other crap, right? It's good.
yeah. They don't get nearly as up for the Air Force game, do they?
No, the Air Force Academy is essentially a mini West Point. I mean, it looks like a modern aluminum and glass version, but the old Army Air Corps was staffed 100% with West Point grads,
Oh,
when
yeah,
they decided to go off and form their own academy. So in many ways, it's much like West Point except for the physical appearance. But it never quite has got the rivalry. Although the Commander in Chief's trophy is very important, and you need to win both of them, right, to get
yeah.
it. Yeah, so that game's not taken lightly either.
Well, if you go back to the song initially was "Nothing Can Stop the Army Air Corps." I mean, and then they changed and then it got changed to "Nothing Can Stop the US Air Force," but,
Right, right. So
yeah, it's a
so we've drifted all over the place
yeah.
today, Chris.
Well,
How about politics?
you've got an interesting life, Mark. I mean, it's a sometimes, just bring on people that have an interesting story. I mean, you've really been a libertarian your whole life. You were circumstances made you one, you're talking about violating child labor laws and, as a child uh, this is something I'm for. I don't want kids, I don't want 10-year-old kids being lumberjacks or fishermen or going into the coal mines, but for a lot of jobs, I am totally okay with kids doing them.
So
Yeah,
I literally work my last 2 years in high school, I worked a 40-hour job
yeah,
and did school full time. The summer between my junior and senior year, I held 2 40-hour jobs. Um, I worked as the state inspector, janitor, and car wash and grease monkey guy for the local Cadillac dealership because his wife was the sponsor of the student council. She was a teacher, and he needed help that summer. So I think it's good to
Yeah.
take responsibility. I had completely saved up enough money to get to pay my way through a couple of years of UT. That was my great ambition as a kid, was
Yeah.
to go to the University of Texas. But
But then
hey,
you got free college.
and then I got free college. That's right. Well, yeah,
But you do
but
have to do
yeah. So I think
you
it's good for young people to learn ethics of working hard and making a contribution.
yeah,
Again, I wasn't in my class. There was a couple people smarter than I am, by no doubt, that I worked on. So I graduated at the top of the class because I literally poured more elbow grease into it than
yeah,
some others did. Put it that way.
yeah. What's about what you talked about a couple times? What's with this cheating scandal?
So the class of 1977, I think it was 130 or so, got
Yeah,
caught in a double E, where they were collaborating on a major test. I mean, double E electrical engineering course, we cadets called it juice. Was the slang name for the course. Was a very tough course, and it became evident that there had been collaboration and sharing of answers and stuff, and so it spread across the class. And I think it was probably the largest cheating scandal in the academy's history. And I think nearly 100 people were actually expelled. Some were let out for a year, and some of them were rehabilitated and came back in. It kind of depended upon the egregious nature of what you had done.
yeah,
Um, yeah, we got general engineering degree, so we had thermo, and we had physics, and we had electrical, and we had mechanical, and we had civil, right? We used to not get a specific degree from the academy, although the Air Force and Navy were doing that. Now all academies, you can get degrees in economics or political science or engineering. It's not as engineering focused as it was when I graduated. So I got a general engineering degree, but probably with an equivalent minor in economics. Every chance I got to take an elective, I headed to the social department, right? That's where all the cool professors were, which were all in uniform, by the way, then. It's not the case today, but 99 times out of 100, there was a captain or a major or a colonel, at the head of every class. So it was military 24/7.
yeah. And that would have been '05, '05, '04, '05, '06, or maybe '03. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, oh 03, captains.
yeah, what was the economics department like?
They had some really great, professors. There was one that had a huge impact on me in my life, although I didn't know it at the time. We had a it was an economics course, but the it was a captain in the quartermaster corps, no less. I mean,
Yeah,
most professors in front of the cadets are armor, infantry, artillery, right? The combat arms. But this gentleman, and I can't recall his name, he had a little bit longer hair than was normal for an officer at that time, and he talked about the coming information revolution. Everything we did in the class, he somehow brought back what information, how it was gonna be transformative to society, right? And then I kinda took it as a grain of salt, and
yeah,
then later on, I had an opportunity where it became true in my life that you could do things so differently by leveraging technology and information. And then that followed me throughout my whole professional
yeah.
career. So I owe a lot to that professor who said, I mean, we did take a computer course. We took a Fortran course, one semester Fortran course.
Yes.
We had to punch the 80 character cards and something about like
I
write a letter to your mama or something. I don't remember what the project was. But
they
yeah, I became a technical guy and used IT throughout
they
my
did
professional
have
life.
some they did have some internet connectivity back then, didn't they, or would they have had it?
They have who?
Internet connectivity.
No, 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 there was no internet. The internet would have
Maybe it
not
was
really come.
APRANet or something like that, but I think it did exist. I think it did exist in a very early form back
Well,
then.
the Department of Defense was early, the DARPA, they fund a
Yeah,
lot of that
DARPA,
stuff,
yeah.
and so, yeah, so we had obviously some connectivity to go to terminals and get on the mainframe computer, et cetera, there within the facility, but
Yeah,
there was clearly no outside connectivity to the
yeah,
world. I mean, yeah.
and
That
everything
that
was
would that would that would not have been allowed, right?
yeah,
They had our full and undivided attention.
and everything was text in black and white or monochrome at least.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe it was yellow and white or orange and white or maybe it was black
I
and green or black and
it was
orange, but it was a black screen
green
with
screen,
one color on it. Yeah,
green screen, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was so expensive back then. I can imagine. And then you went into the service for how long?
So I went to the service for 5 full years. That was the
Yeah,
requirement. I figured if you're gonna be in the Army, you might as well do the most basic thing the Army does. So your branch and your post are selected based on your rank in the class. I had an
y-
opportunity to go any branch in any post in the world except for one post. There's a battalion in Vicenza, Italy that's on jump status that meant you get a little extra pay. There were 2 slots and they were gone before they got to me. So I decided to go infantry because I had classmates that went to become doctors and
yeah,
pilots and other stuff. I said, "No, if you're gonna be in the Army, you should do the basic thing." So I went infantry, which meant Fort Benning, officer basic, ranger school. I was already jump qualified as a cadet during one of the summers, and couple of specialty courses. And then I volunteered to go to Korea because at that point, that was the most realistic environment that we had, right? So
yeah,
my active duty coincided basically with Reagan's first term. Um, the economy was in really bad shape after the Carter term. So we had good quality troops because they couldn't get a job in civilian life. So we had good quality soldiers, and we had a lot of money for training in the military through the Reagan buildup. And so I went to South Korea, platoon leader, an executive officer. I got you know, led patrols in the DMZ with live rounds and claymore mines. I'm sorry,
yeah.
it's not. I'm sorry, it's demilitarized. I forgot to mention that.
It's a
But
militarized zone, yes,
it's and
but
then I got a chance to go up and be an aide to a brigadier general who was the commander over the 3 brigades and the division artillery, so the firepower side of an infantry division. Got to see the Army really broadly at an early stage, from that opportunity, and then I went back to the 101st and became a staff officer, battalion adjutant, which is basically the HR guy for like 600 people. I was a new first lieutenant, and I knew nothing about HR, and what I found was a word processor, going back to the IT thing, under a cover gathering dust in a storeroom because I got slotted into this personnel action center that completely was screwed up. It couldn't promote, it couldn't give anybody an Article 13, it couldn't get relocation orders. It was completely defunct. And we pulled that out, and within 2 weeks, we had a prototype template for every single transaction that PAC was responsible for, right? Um, and suddenly we were the PAC of the quarter because we used technology to get the job done. And then as soon as I could get out of that staff position, I mean, I did. I went over to an infantry, the heavy weapons company, which had like 90% of the firepower in the battalion, all in concentrated in this one company with massive amounts of equipment with 17-digit serial numbers that had to be meticulously entered onto property books. And I realized that my supply sergeant wasn't getting supplies because he was always rewriting property books every time you had to exchange a component. No whiteout allowed. So I took him over to the battalion, and he learned how to use it. And suddenly I digitized my supply room at the company level, and then I digitized all the training records at the company level. And then I got promoted as a first lieutenant to what should have been a senior captain's job to take command of that company. We did just fine because we leveraged technology to improve training and readiness reporting and other
yeah,
things. So I became a lifelong believer in what that professor in
yeah.
the social department back at West Point had been preaching all along.
Did you happen to be in Korea when the, Korean airliner was shot down by the Soviets?
I don't think so. Do you have do you have the dates of that event? I mean,
You know
maybe
what
you're
I'm
doing some
talking
research
about,
here.
right?
Oh, absolutely. The KAL
KAL
oh,
007, yeah, which and
zero zero 007 flight, yes.
which of course had Larry McDonald on it, who was the only one of the
Do
few,
you have the date of that downing? Because I can tell you
September
I
1st, '83.
no, 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 no. I was back in the States by
Okay.
'82. Because one of my jobs as the aide was I got all the satellite CIA reports every day on my desk, and I did a brief review of them and highlighted the things that I thought the general should pay attention to, right? So,
Uh,
I got to see all the internal commentary on, ooh, I guess what was then, Kim Jong Il's father or grandfather. I don't know
yeah.
exactly when Kim Il Sung passed away,
I
but I think it was his dad.
have
Um
you been back to Seoul since?
I have not been back to Seoul since I left, but it's
I
huge.
can imagine it's changed, yeah.
It was a huge city then, but it was and the Korean culture's phenomenal. Those people they work hard and they play hard,
Well
and it was a great cultural experience.
they also got a new airport since then, you must have flown in and out of Gimpo, which, now it's the
We used to fly into Kimpo,
yeah,
I
Gimpo,
think.
yes.
Yeah, that's probably the old one. Yeah.
Which leads me to the inevitable question since I grew up watching this show religiously. What do you think of MASH?
Oh, I love MASH. I mean, who cannot like MASH? Was it always real? Well, first of all, that wasn't in the Korean War, right? It
Yeah,
was in the early '50s.
but
So,
this portrays
yeah,
army people in Korea and, you know,
yeah,
obviously
but
fine.
yeah, I love the show MASH. It's probably one of the few series that I kind of religiously watched every time I could have. And the really interesting thing about it, I went to my high school class's 50th reunion. Oh, back in September of this past year, and somebody mentioned, they said, "You do know that one of our classmates was in the final episode of MASH as an actor?" And I go, "No, I didn't know it." And this guy was a good friend of mine, by the way. We departed ways. We graduated. I went to New York. He went to California. It turns out he went out and worked in the movie industry for years, became acquainted with Alan Alda. So Alda gave him a really prominent little part in the very last episode. I pulled it up when I got back from the reunion, and he's the guy who got injured, and you'll have to go back and look at it, but you'll spot him. He's a
Yeah.
guy that came in, and there's like 2 or 3 minutes of him on TV. So
Well,
it was a
it's a long episode, so it's really hard to say.
yeah, it was a long one.
Yeah, I just wondered if you yeah, a any, so you went into engineering, and what movies or TV shows get it right about the Army and what ones get it wrong?
What movies?
Yeah, what movies or TV shows or get it right, what ones get it wrong?
Oh, I like, Saving Private Ryan. It's a great show, movie. If somebody asks me what my favorite movie is, it's gotta be the Zorro series, right?
Yeah. Well, there've
The
been some
guy out yeah, the guy out there trying to fight for the oppressed. I
yeah,
I just kinda can relate to Zorro. So,
well
I mean, so
well,
do you have all these websites I
yeah,
shouldn't say this, but yeah, when they ask you your secret what's your favorite movie, and you put something and that becomes a passkey,
yes.
unfortunately,
Well
Zorro is mine.
also though, also Private Benjamin came out when you were in the military, and that's certainly a hilarious movie,
Yeah. I just finished a book. Oh, a proud American, Joe Foss, the
Yeah.
greatest ace. What an awesome guy. You talk about a guy who parlayed a military career into just a great life. Have you read the book?
No, no, I've not read that book, yeah. What
Yeah,
was the name of
a
that book
great a
again?
great American by Joe Foss. It's an autobiography.
FOSS?
FOSS, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Um, this guy, he's a real life version of Forrest Gump. He got to meet everybody coming out of World War II. Obviously, he earned that right. Yeah, he's got the greatest record of all time, I think, still in terms of downing Japanese, combat aircraft.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of people I imagine a lot of people who who graduated from West Point did go on to successful lives, it seems like. You certainly hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got classmates who were four-star generals. The last four-star general, the commander in Afghanistan was a classmate.
Yeah.
A classmate who was a four-star
Yeah.
general commanded Fort Hood, which here in Texas. I have a classmate running for senator this season, this cycle in 2026
Well,
in Virginia. So yeah, a lot of, and we've got surgeons and doctors, attorneys.
yeah.
Yeah, lots of good quality people, go through there that live productive lives and make contributions.
So what do you think of our current military actions and where the country is
Huh.
right now?
So, I believe in peace through strength. I believe that we need to have an efficient army that's prepared to deal with, threats in the current age, which maybe mean less tanks and less warships and more drones and other things, right? We need to be adapting. I think we've got the most professional, skilled army in the world. We don't have the largest, but they're certainly more lethal. And that's their objective. I mean, people ask me, why did you get out of the service? And I have a very simple answer. Um, I have tremendous respect for those folks who spent 20, 30, 40 years in service. But what they were really dedicating their lives was to hone their skills on how to kill people and break things. And while I respect what they did, that's not my fabric. I'm a builder. I'm a construction guy. I like to create and solve. And so there was kind of a fundamental difference. I loved my time and I had a great time while serving and glad that I did, but it wasn't a life's vocation. So yeah, I think we've got a great military. I'm all on board with increasing lethality and taking out politics and social issues. It's not a social experiment. It's got a mission, and it's to keep us
Yeah.
safe.
What do you think about the USS Liberty?
The USS
Liberty,
Liberty. You have to. That's not
the
ringing a
attack
bell.
the attack on the USS Liberty that occurred in 1967.
Oh, that would have been the Vietnam, right? The
Well, it
North
was
Korea.
in the Mediterranean Sea. It sounds like you don't know anything about it, so
No, I think I vaguely recall what you're talking about. I was thinking about when the North Koreans attacked, but the Vietnam era. But no, I don't have the specifics on the top of my head. But you can enlighten me, and I'll probably form an opinion pretty quick.
it it was an attack on a recon ship, not really a military ship, but a recon ship that was just spying on things in international waters. It was attacked by Israel, and every man who survived that attack, as far as I know, believes that it was deliberate, and Israel claims it was accidental, and it was very much covered up for about 15 years at least.
Yeah.
Or-
Well, I mean, I know for a fact, mistakes do happen, right? In spite of all
Yeah,
the training, in spite of all the precision, I mean, things can go wrong. People make decisions in a split second, and sometimes you punch a coordinate in wrong, things happen. But I'd have to look more
yeah,
into that. I couldn't really comment.
yeah. So, well, I think we've had a pretty good show here. It's been certainly interesting.
In '67, I would have been in the fourth grade.
Yeah, had a lot of certainly had a very lot of interesting experiences. Is Korea the only time you've been outside the country?
Oh, no, I've been all over the world, traveled extensively in Europe, Central America, Australia, Japan, Asia. So no, I've had the fortune either through the military or through business or just opportunities to go and relax, to go to different places. Yeah, I love the Aussies. That I got to
Yes.
go over for a little retreat it lasted 3 days, and I said, if I'm going to Australia for 3 days, I'm gonna do something else." So I hopped a flight, went up to Cannes, and went out and did a liveaboard on a dive boat for a week.
Yeah,
Five dives a day on the Great Barrier Reef. So
yeah,
lots of opportunity to see other cultures.
yeah. I've often said if I'm going to go that far, I'm going to make it 2 weeks. Just to because it just
Yep,
seems kind of foolish not to take that. You're going this far away, you might as well do.
yep, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, and also, what do you think about the president of Argentina?
Javier, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
a
a
big fan.
total fan of Milu. He is, kind of an Austrian economics guy. He believes in the free market.
Yeah,
South America as a whole is drifting in his direction as opposed to the other direction. And their economies are doing better. It's been a great place to have been invested the last year since he's come on board. I mean, Argentina was a basket case after Peronism, right?
yeah,
Uh, and so I think he's doing good things.
yeah,
I don't know if you noticed my logo, but it's a little bit of a takeoff. It's fix it, damn it. And while that's a little bit out there for a politician, it's kind of what I feel and what I hope will capture the mood of Texan voters. And Javier Miller's got a very similar slogan that he is,
yeah.
"It's more freedom, damn it," or something like that.
It's
Yeah,
Viva la Libertad Carajo. Yeah, he's
yeah.
so the guy just has such a personality that I think people like him. He is so gracious and always. I mean, every time he gives a speech, he's thanking his staff. It's really it's hard not to
Isn't
love the guy.
isn't that nice
Yeah,
when somebody in that responsibility has a
and
little
he knows
humility?
he
And
knows how to be cool. He's got a 70% approval rating with Argentines under 30. I mean, it's I really hope I really would like to see more libertarians get interested in it, figure out what can you do that's like this guy anyway. Well, so, well, about I think it's about time to wrap up. I don't know. Oh, I also want to ask you, was the economics department at West Point pretty free market or not?
Oh, definitely, definitely free market. I mean, West Point's not political, so they didn't teach you
Yeah.
fundamentals, and they're gonna teach you truth. Then I haven't been in the classroom there in a long time, but then it was very much non-ideological. It was to give you skills and knowledge, which is the fundamental objective of all education. It should be. We shouldn't be putting kids in indoctrination factories where they're taught what to think.
Yeah.
We should be putting them in places where they're taught how to think and do their research and get facts and make
Yeah.
informed decisions.
Well, okay. Yeah. And, okay. I think we're about ready to, anything else to say before we go?
No, I don't think so. We have covered the gamut. I had no idea what to expect. This was my first podcast being taped. So thank you for walking me
Yes.
through it. And you listed a lot of information that I had no idea we would cover today, but it's
Yeah.
been fun and I've enjoyed it. And I hope we'll get a chance to talk more. And yeah, hope a lot of
Yeah.
people get to watch it and learn a little bit about the vision for uh, what 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 I have. I say I'm an optimist. I think things can be fixed. We just have to put our nose to the grindstone and get rid of all the distractions, get rid of the corruption, and we can solve whatever challenges this country faces.
Yeah. And what is your website?
Simsfortexas.org went up live just a couple of days ago. I sent you a link. I realized some people
Yeah.
are not yet in that mode to review it, but there's more information on that website
Yes.
than you will find on any other campaign anywhere, I think. Yeah,
Sims
I
for
it's an
Texas,
open book.
Sims for Texas, SIMSFORTEXAS.org. That's Sims with one M. Lots of people do spell it with two, so I want to make sure people know
Yeah,
that.
I've got my name is spelled the most people spell it in England, my forebears used SYMES, and then it became
Yes.
SYMMS, and then SIMMS, but I'm just as simple as you can get. SIMS, short and sweet.
Yeah, SYMM. Sometimes I see SYMMES too.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that looks Welsh actually, but oh well. So anyway, so please, okay, so well, thank you, Mark Sims. It's been a good show. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out my Substack. Go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. People are giving me money to buy me a coffee. Thank you, Mark Sims. I'm Chris Baker. We're out.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.